Hi everybody, welcome back to class. In this video, we're actually going to be starting off with a review topic that you should have learned back in 6th grade life science. We're going to actually be looking at organisms and biological classification and basically how the different living things are classified. Now, the hardest part about this is first understanding what an organism is. You hear people say out there, how do you define life? Well, an organism is anything living, and there are some basic requirements to be a living thing. One of those requirements is that something must be made of at least one single cell. It must be at least single cellular. So single cellular organisms like bacteria, they are living. An organism must grow, change, and develop. For example, you were never started off the same size you are now. You grew, you changed, you developed. You grow as you grow and develop, your body changes. You put on more muscle mass, your hair grows longer, your voice deepens, and you go through different biological changes. Your body's developing over time, it's changing as you grow. If something doesn't change or grow over time, or if it doesn't develop, it can't be living. Like a rock. A rock doesn't grow. It might change its shape because of weathering, but it doesn't grow. It doesn't change because it developed. So it is not living. Another requirement would be respond to stimuli, and stimuli could be sunlight, temperature, or other environmental factors. If a bright light gets turned on, you respond to it. You squint, you might look away. You see plants respond to sunlight. They'll grow towards sunlight. You'll see trees that bend around different objects so that they can grow towards it. You'll see trees grow at weird angles or other plants so they can get to the sunlight. They're responding to that stimuli. Temperature would be another stimuli. When it's cold out, you shiver. When it's hot out, you sweat. You're responding to the different temperatures. And you see other living things do the same thing. For example, plants again. Plants respond to the different temperatures. When it's cold out, you'll see plants die. Or right now in this time of year, you start to see the leaves on the trees change. And then when it gets warm again, you'll see the plants respond by starting to form buds on the trees and they start to bloom. So they must respond to stimuli. Another requirement to be a living thing is an organism must consume energy. Another word you'll learn about when you get to biology is it means an organism must have a metabolism. You've got to use up some form of energy. For you, that energy comes from the food that you eat. If you don't eat, you feel tired and sluggish. You have no energy because your body is using the food you've already previously eaten as energy. And as it runs out of food, as it digests it, you don't have as much energy, so your body needs more food. And when you don't have that energy, it's like a car that's low on gas. It doesn't run as well. So you must consume energy to be a living thing. And finally, a living thing must reproduce. It must have offspring. And this can occur in different ways depending on the organism that we're talking about. Now, with all organisms, they get broken up into two broad categories: eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Eukaryotes, or a eukaryotic cell, are organisms made up of cells that have a membrane-bound nucleus, and they hold genetic material, or they hold that DNA, and they have organelles. And in this image here off to the left under eukaryotes, you can see the nucleus in the middle. There is a actual definitive nucleus in here, and there are other organelles or different little tiny organs around the cell or in the cell. You got the plasma membrane, the endoplasmic reticulum, vesicles, Golgi apparatus. All of those are organelles, so that makes it a eukaryote. Prokaryotic cells, they do not have a membrane-bound nucleus. They do not have a nucleus. In here, they do have genetic material in here, and you could see it in the middle, that little squiggly stuff, but it is not in a nucleus. It's just kind of floating inside of there. There is no nucleus. And they also don't really have any organelles. They do have membranes and cell walls, And they have cytoplasm, like a jelly-like substance inside, but you don't see all of the different organelles in there that you do in eukaryote cells. Now, organisms that are eukaryotes can be multicellular or single cellular. And for prokaryotes, most of the organisms are single cellular. Multicellular means an organism is made up of more than one cell. And when they're multicellular, usually it's very, 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 very many cells. And single cellular organism is an organism made up of only one cell. Think bacteria, where you see this image here is a classic bacteria under prokaryotes. That's your classic prokaryotic cell or classic bacteria. Plants, uh, most fungus, they are multicellular. You're made up of many, 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 many different cells. Now with the eukaryotes and prokaryotes, you're going to see here, these are the 6 different kingdoms we're going to be looking at later on in the notes. This is how they fit under there. Animals, plants, fungi, and protists are eukaryotes, and archaea bacteria and eubacteria are prokaryotes. So now on to actually classifying organisms. Organisms will be classified by scientists based on their structures, based on their physical properties, and how closely they're related to each other based on their physical appearance or physical characteristics. Now, all organisms are going to be classified from broad to specific. The broadest category is the domain. That would be your broadest category, and there are 3 domains. There are archaea, there are eukaryote, and there are bacteria, are the 3 different ones there. Then you go down the list here and you can see this upside down pyramid. The closer you get to the tip, the more specific you get. You have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, with species being the most specific. Domain can have very, very many organisms in there, but a species is one particular organism. Now, a way to remember the order of these is a little play on words here of do keep ponds clean or frogs get sick. Do keep ponds clean or frogs get sick. Do for domain, keep for kingdom, ponds for phylum, clean for class, or for order, frogs for family, get for genus, and sick for species. And here's just a breakdown. Look, so you can see actually from domain to species just how specific it gets. So here's the domain eukarya. These are different eukaryotes. The domain has many different organisms in there. You see black bears, polar bears, grizzly bears, panda bears. I'm not sure, let's say a lemur. You got cheetahs, wolves, dolphins, zebras, frogs. Looks like seagulls, turtle, fish, butterflies, starfish, sponges, plants, fungi, and protists in here. That's a lot of different organisms. But as you go down all the way to species, it gets more and more specific and different organisms are knocked out until you get finally down here to Ursus americanus, or the American black bear. That is a very specific species, but it's also in the domain Eukarya. So you can see just how that breaks down and gets more specific over time. Now we go to identify an organism, and we name it in a very special way called binomial nomenclature. And this is using the genus and the species, the names from the genus and the species of an organism. Binomial nomenclature comes from the 2 words binomial and nomenclature. Binomial means to name. That prefix bi means two. Like bicycle has 2 wheels. You are a bipedal organism, meaning you walk on 2 feet. Nomial means name. And nomenclature means just naming system. Now with binomial nomenclature, the organism's genus is the first word, always. It is always the first word, and it's always capitalized. So when you see in a scientific name, and this is where we get the scientific names of organisms, again, going back, like Ursus americanus, you can see the first word is capitalized. That would be the genus. The second word is a species, and it's always lowercase. Again, Ursus americanus, genus, species, and that's how it's always going to be. Here are just some examples. So with genus, you see that it is capitalized. I even capitalized the word genus. Species is lowercase. For a gray wolf, it is in the genus Canis, but the species Lupus. So its scientific name is Canis lupus. The coyote is in the genus Canis, and in the species Lantrans. Together, the scientific name would be Canis lantrans. You can see that the gray wolf and the coyote are in the same genus, but they're in two different species. We then move on to a red fox. Now, we would think that the gray wolf, coyote, and the red fox would all be in similar genuses, where they'd be very similar because we think of them all as kind of like dogs. But the red fox is actually in the genus Vulpes, and it's in the species Vulpes. So it's an entirely different genus and an entirely different species here. But an Arctic fox is also in the genus Vulpes, but its species is Lagopus. So the scientific name is Vulpes lagopus. And this is where we're going to stop with our notes for this section. And when we continue, we are going to be picking up here at the 6 different kingdoms. If you have any questions with this, please feel free to contact me. I hope you have a wonderful day, everybody.